It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy. Back at the Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew a version 1.0 deck list of a commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing. And today we're back for another episode. As always, the deck list is going to be down in the description below. As always, I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe. Consider checking out links in the description, including new Millsy Brews merch is out. Check it out. I'd love to hear what you think of it. But today, we're finishing up this week looking at Volo Guide to Monsters. An oldie but a goodie in my books. A fun commander that cares about having creatures of many different types. And since the last time I looked at Volo, we've got a bunch of new creatures to talk about. So that's the goal today. Update the list, take another shot at it, see if we can have some fun. Well, it says whenever you cast a creature spell that doesn't share a type with a creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard, we get to copy that spell. So the whole goal of the deck is to have as many creatures as we can of different types so we can get copies of them, take advantage of getting copies of them for multiple things. More mana from things like mana dorks, more values that stack together from different creatures, and overall just push towards getting into the game with our Zoo-style deck into I think the first thing to talk about with Volo is our cast of characters. All of these creatures with different types that we get to get copies of. We have things like Amphin Mutineer, creature that when it comes in destroys, exiles up to one target non-salamander creature and gives their controller a 4/3 salamander token instead, right? Doubling up with it with Volo means 2 pieces of removal, right? For 4 mana. Biogenic Ooze is a favorite of mine. 5 mana 2/2 ooze that when it comes in makes you another ooze. So hopefully with Volo we're getting 4 oozes total. In the beginning of your end step, you get to put a counter on each ooze you control. So there's a way to just start growing your board of oozes. And for 4 mana, you can make another ooze to start growing. Defiler of Vigor seems like it was born for a deck like this. Phyrexian Worm that says the additional cost to cast any green permanent, you pay 2 life. If we do, they cost 1 green mana less. And this effect only reduces the amount of green mana in it, so just 1 green pip. And then whenever we cast a permanent spell, we put a counter each creature you control. Double Defiler of Vigors means not only good reduction, but counters everywhere in our creatures as we build our board state. Emrace Forerunners still remains one of my favorite, green pseudo finishers. An 8 mana boar that comes in and gives +2/+2 vigilance and trample to our whole board. Again, with Volo, potentially +4/+4, right? A nice big buff for our board to get in for some damage. First Responder is kind of an interesting one. Beginning our end step, we could return another creature we control to its hand, our owner's hand, and then put a number of counters on it equal to that power onto First Responder. I like the idea of this one because what we can effectively do is bounce our own creatures back and replay them if they have good ETB abilities, or we could bounce the creature and its copy back to our hand, get counters on both of our first responders, and then play it again and get another copy, right? As long as we don't have that same type. This seems like a fun interaction with taking advantage of different character or creatures in our deck that have certain types but have great abilities. Gruff Triplet comes in and makes 2 copies of itself. Now, with Volo, unfortunately, the copy of Gruff won't make them because it says if it enters the battlefield, if it isn't a token, it makes 2 copies of itself, but that's okay. We're still going to net 4 Gruff Triplets for 6 mana. And when it dies, you put a number of counters equal to its power on each creature you control named Gruff Triplets, a way to potentially just grow our board, right, of Gruff Triplets as each of them die. Hydroid Krasis, drawing us some cards and gaining us some life. The nice part with Volo is that the copy will retain the number of counters on it. We just won't get the draw because we don't cast the copy. The Comas may look odd. Right, they're legendary. They're not going to get the copies like we want them to, but they're just great bodies that can really take over a game. Both have great abilities, both are hard to deal with, and hopefully they could be the things to either be our distraction card effects of sorts or really take over a game with the value they produce. Again, they won't get the copies because they're legendaries, but that's a-okay. They're great creatures at what they do. Morkfiend Liege gets a little buff to each of its 2 colors of creatures. Of course, if they're both, they're going to get both the buffs. But the big ability is you get to untap all green and or blue creatures we control during each other player's up 10 step. This is nice because then we can start untapping all of our creatures and making sure they're around to block and attack. Pathbreaker Ibex a great option for attacking. Whenever it attacks, creatures we control get trample and +X/+X till undetermined, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control, meaning that with 2 of them, they get a massive buff to start dealing damage to our opponents. Peregrine Drake, when it comes in, untaps up to 5 lands. An interesting way to have it come in, untap mana, and have more to keep doing even more. Love this as a combo with that first citizen, first responder to keep untapping our lands, getting more mana for the things that we want to do. Railway Brawler is going to put counters on a creature whenever it comes in, where X is its power. It's a fun ability, especially when we have 2 of them, to make sure that creatures are coming in with a big buff and being able to deal big damage. Silver Black Elder is a card I've always liked, but I think feels great here. Mainly because these are really great abilities and we want to be casting creature spell. We get our choice of destroying an artifact or enchantment, looking at the top 5, putting a land from among them tapped, or gaining 4 life. So a way to take out some pesky artifacts and enchantments, way to gain some life, way to get some lands. I think there's a great option there. When you have 2 of them, that means that we're taking advantage of them, right? Every time that that we cast those creature spells. Sire of 7 Deaths just makes a ton of sense for our choice spell Eldrazi because it isn't legendary. So we're going to get 2 of them, and that's a lot of keywords to take advantage of with a big old creature on the battlefield. Spark Double kind of gets to take advantage of Volo's ability because it's printed as an illusion, but comes in as a copy of anything. This is a really fun ability because we're going to get 2 of them, and each of them can come in as whatever we want them to, whether it be Volo, whether it be something else. It's kind of nice to come in as Volo to get more copies, right, of a thing that's coming in, or we could have it be a copy of something else. But I like Spark Double because, again, it's not a its type line is different from anything else. So we're always going to get that second copy of it. Spawning Kraken isn't a cheap creature, but it's very good at what it does. Whenever a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent deals combat damage to a player, you make a 9/9 Kraken token. Again, we get 2 of these, meaning we can get so many Kraken tokens out of it. I think I've always felt like this pairs really well with Coma as well to have some fun interaction there. Temur Sabertooth, another way to potentially bounce things back to our hand, put a creature back in our hand, maybe if we know a board wipe's coming or something like that, or in response to some removal, and then we could play it again right after that. So I like Temur Sabertooth not only as a option there, but a way to just bounce things back to our hand. Let us play them again. Let us use them again in many different ways. Tendershoot Dryad is going to help us set up a good board state. At the beginning of every turn, you make a sapling, and then saplings get a buff as long as you have the City's Blessing. Again, with 2 Tendershoot Dryads, you're making a ton of saplings, and that board through 3 saplings could get out of hand pretty quickly if our opponents don't have any way to do with it. I decided to go with Topiary Stomper for my dinosaur, although there's a lot of really great dinosaur choices, just because you can get some ramp in. I think the ramp's important, especially in the early turns, and being able to get 2 lands off of Taupe Stomper feels like a really good idea. So I think that makes a ton of sense. And then Uro, again, it's legendary, but it doesn't matter because it's a great ability. When it enters or attacks, you gain 3, draw a card, and you can put a land from your hand on the battlefield. So the way Uro is going to work is that they're going to both come in and both trigger. Obviously, we're going to keep the legendary one. They'll both go off. It'll, of course, escape itself. But the point is we got 6 life, 2 cards, and potentially the ability to put 2 lands from our hand on the battlefield. Again, good ramp for just 3 mana. And then later, we can bring Uro back, right, to take advantage of its ability again for us. But it's not just about the creatures. I think it's also about the mana dorks, the things that we can take advantage of because of their typings. Things like Birds of Paradise, we can get a second copy of, being great mana dorks. Enduring Vitality can make all of our creatures tap for mana of any color. We will get the second one because we don't have an Elk or a Glimmer in our deck, but the point is now all of our creatures can tap for mana and help us cast our biggest creatures. This idea fits really well with something like Inga and Essica, which gives all of our creatures vigilance and tapping to add a mana of any color, but only to cast creatures. But the big one that helps, especially with how many mana dorks we have in the deck, is whenever we cast a creature, if 3 or more mana from creatures was used to cast it, we draw a card, allowing us to fill our hand back up. Marrowleaf, Pixie, Ornithopter Paradise, examples of mana dorks that have exclusive typings in the deck, so we can make sure we get doubles of them. And then Trail Tracker Scout to me is an interesting one. You tap it out of mana of any color, but if you spend 8, you get to bring a permanent from your graveyard back to your hand. This feels like a really good thing to have in here, because our key big creatures are probably going to get knocked off the table, right? And this is a way to potentially start bringing them back in order for us to take advantage of them. But I think another way to look at this and what Simic does so well is copying creatures. There's a lot of different ways to approach this. I think something like Dutiful Replicator is pretty interesting, When it comes in, we can pay 1. If we do, we make a token that's a copy of another token that's not dutiful replicator. So if another creature's out that has a token, well, dutiful replicator can come in and make a copy of it. And we're playing, in my opinion, the two more recent well-known copy spells, an aggressive Biomancy and Doppelgang. Both of these can make copies of something. Biomancy is only a creature we control, and Doppelgang is just X copies of X target permanents, any permanents, not even just ours. Both of these have a lot of upside in our deck. Of course, Biomancy on a creature that has a good ETB ability, or either of them on a creature that has a good ETB ability, right, means more value the turn that we do it. What I like about Doppelgang is you can hit lands, you can hit artifacts, you can hit a lot of things with Doppelgang to just get a bunch of resources very quickly. The card that makes a ton of sense here is Twinning Staff, right? Whenever we would copy a spell, copy additional time. Again, Volo's copying, so that makes sense, right? Mystic Reflection was a card that I don't think I had ever thought about. I mean, it's probably in the deck the first time around, but I think the more you look at this deck, the more that it makes a ton of sense. So you choose a non-legendary creature, and the next time one or more creatures would enter the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of that creature. This is really fun because let's say you cast a creature and you really don't want a copy of it. Let's say it's a legendary creature. Well, you pick another creature you control that isn't legendary. It comes in as a copy. The copy from Volo comes in as that. The original comes in as its own. And now you don't lose that copy, and you've gained potentially another copy of a really great creature you already have. Same thing with Sea Double. Sea Double is a really interesting card because you can either copy a spell and choose targets for the copy, or you can just copy a token your create token that's a copy of a target creature, not even our creature, just anyone's creature. So this is kind of interesting, right? It's that dual fold type ability where you can either copy a spell or copy something of ours to take real advantage of it. Things like City of Death can make copies of our tokens. So again, every turn choosing another one to make a copy of, hopefully getting more and more value. Extravagant Replication takes any non-land permanent control and makes a copy of it at the beginning of our upkeep. Again, getting more mana dorks, getting more creatures, getting more enchantments, value. There's a lot of ways to take a look at Extravagant Replication, but the point is that you're getting extra things every turn. And then Life Finds a Way was originally a card that I put in for the first time into Miram, which we're also covering this week. But it was a card that I thought of here because we do have a lot of creatures with power 4 or greater in the deck, meaning that when they come in, they're going to populate, making copies of other creature tokens we have, getting more value for us, right? And just pushing our board state even further than what it was already. I labeled this section value adders because I wasn't exactly sure where to put all of these cards individually, but I think they're all really important to what we're trying to do. Champion of Lambhold is a great finisher for decks that have a lot of creatures coming in because it grows every time a creature's come in, and then creatures with less power than it actually cannot block creatures we control, potentially giving them unblockable, right, and getting in for better damage. Combined Crystal is over there on the right, giving all of our creature tokens flying. Again, means they can't be blocked and potentially, right, and get in for bigger damage as well. Radagras, the brown there in the middle, is just an interesting card. Whenever it or another non-token creature comes in, we look at the top X, where X is that creature's mana value, and you could reveal a creature that doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control and put it into your hand. What I like about this is just a way to dig for more creatures, right, that Volo can take advantage of copying. So, mana value, number of cards, get a creature that doesn't share a type, which is a lot in this deck, right? That's the way we built it, and get it in our hands so we can play it on a future turn. Crystal Shards is another way to bounce a creature back to our hands so we can replay it, right? Get more value from it. Guardian Project's going to draw us cards as we cast creatures, just so that way we can get value. Guardian Project has kind of an odd wording, right? Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control or creature card in your graveyard, you draw a card. Well, that may look like a small non-bow with Volo, right? Because we're going to be playing a lot of creatures that have copies. But I think the important part is that there are other ways to take advantage of this and ways to play around it. But I think it might just be some incremental card gain when we do need it. And we do have some creatures that share creature types. If that's the case, then this will still work. And then Long List of the Ents is just a very interesting card, but it is pretty cool. So for each of these 6 saga steps, you're going to pick a type that hasn't been noted so far. And when you cast your next creature spell of that type's turn, a creature enters with an additional counter on it. So we're going to pick, obviously, the type of the creature we know we're going to cast that turn. And it comes in with a counter, and as long as we're picking a different one, 6+1+1 counters over the course of 6 turns, just to buff up our creatures. But I've said it before on the show and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. Even though we've covered Volo in the past, we're still not perfect by any means. I think there's still a lot to learn in testing, which is we have enough card draw? Are we missing other things? We need more copy effects. What are what are the things that can push us over? For draw effects, I think of something like Consecrated Sphinx. Wherever an opponent draws a card, we can draw 2 cards. With 2 of them out, right? That means potentially 4 cards every time an opponent draws a card. If we want to, again, we don't have to. Fnatic Ronus is a snake that can tap for a ton of mana, but we do have other snakes and druids in the deck, so that becomes, is that mana price worth what it is? I think the answer is yes, but I wanted to try my best to hit the spread, right, on all my creatures, but I think I'd probably put it back in as well. And then Season of Weaving, I just think has a lot of really interesting potential. It's one of the paw spells for Bloomburrow, so you get 5 paws worth of choices at the bottom. 1 to draw a card, 2 to choose an artifact or creature we control and make a copy of it, or 3 to return each non-token, non-land permanent to its owner's hand. There's a lot of ways to look at this, but what I think is really interesting about Season of Weaving in this deck is that it won't return the tokens, it will return the regular creatures back, meaning we can cast them again, right, if those tokens were to ever leave the battlefield. So I think Weaving's really interesting in a deck like this, and it might have some utility for us. But let's get into our play tests. Keeping a 3-lander with Kadama's Reach and Ornithopter Paradise, Life Finds a Way, and Overwhelming Stampede for some stompy goodness. Here, I think we're going to look to just get ourselves up the ranks. I think the question here becomes, do we play Ornithopter before or after Volo, right? Because if we play it before Volo, we can't get a second one, but if we play it after Volo, right, we can get a second one. So I think it just comes down to what we're looking towards, right? We see Coma here on turn 2, a great creature, right, to work towards. I think I'd rather wait this turn, do the Kadama's Reach, right? Do kind of the natural ramp. And then next turn, right, then we can, and maybe we look to Ornithopter after so they can work our way right into Coma. So we'll play Volo this turn. Come on back. Turn 6, I think we go Twinning Staff, Ornithopter. Remember, we get 2 of them because of the Twinning Staff. And so that was 5 mana, but hey, now we got 3 extra mana next turn, meaning we got just enough for Coma. We got potentially enough for 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if we can get another land down, we have something like Life Finds a Way, so that as the copies of Coma come in, they can make copies of the Ornithopters, right? Still giving us more mana on the next turn. So here, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mana. We actually do have enough to Coma and Topiary Stomper. So the Taupe Stomper is kind of interesting, right? Because we get 3 of them, meaning we get 3 lands, right? So we can just go get a bunch more mana, right? Set ourselves up, thin our deck out a little bit. All right, now they all can attack because we definitely hit the threshold. And then I'm thinking Coma. Again, we'll get 2 copies of Coma, but remember that the legendary rule kind of stops us. Maybe it would have been a smarter idea to put the Life Finds a Way in first, but that's okay. Coma's still going to be a threat to our opponents because next turn it's just going to start hurting our opponents and making them really have to deal with what we have now with the dinosaurs and the Coma. We'll go one more turn. I mean, oodles of mana, right? 10, 13 mana, right? And the Twinning Staff. I think I would go, what? Life Finds a Way to go down to 10 mana. I like the idea of Overwhelming Stampede, right? +8/+8 this turn and just, right, take a big swing. I mean, people got to deal with Coma. They got to deal with everything else. I think this knocks at least 1 player out, if not 2, and kind of pushes us towards what we'd want to do in the coming turns. We could always play something like Temur Sabertooth and bounce Coma to play it again to take advantage of the Life Finds a Way. I think there's some interesting, stuff left in this game, but I think we've kind of gotten to where we need to for the purposes of our play test. Getting into the second one. A 1/2 3-lander with Growth Spiral, Doppelgang, Hydroichrasis, and that Enduring Vitality. So lots of ways to get some mana, lots of ways to do some really interesting things. We'll put the Snarl down turn 1. I mean, not much we can do. So here, turn 2, we can go ahead and Growth Spiral to cheat out the next land. It would be really great, right, if the card we drew off the top was a land, right? But if not, we just kind of cheated ourselves another turn, right? But let's do it. Let's see what we can get to. It's not a land, but that's a-okay. don't get to play the birds this turn, but that's okay. We could potentially play birds next turn, or we could just try to get Volo down next turn, right? If we top a land. Turn 3, we do not. So we'll play the Kiora. I was gonna say, we can untap one just to get the birds down to make sure that it happens, right? It feels weird to play them before Volo, but the truth is, like, I feel like we kind of need to get Volo down to make sure that we can start doubling up on our value, right? And then we can start drawing cards with Kiora as we're putting our big creatures down. So getting turn 4 took off to play Volo. Turn 5 here. Sorry, we would had to have untapped. We could tap 3, untap for 4, and then 5. So we do really have 5 mana at our disposal. I like the idea of Enduring Vitality. That would give us 3 extra mana. We could Enduring Vitality and have the copy come in as a copy of Birds of Paradise as an option. We could Hydroid for 3. That kind of feels like an odd option as well, especially because it doesn't draw us any more cards off of that Kiora. I think I like the idea of just the Vitality and make the copy a copy of Birds of Paradise just to get us some more mana. Make sure that we have access to more on our next turn and just go from there. We did have to tick Kiora down that turn. Well, no land on turn 6, we do see Mirror Box, a way that we can now start playing legendary creatures or have extra copies of legendary creatures. So that could turn on something like Doppelgang or Aggressive Biomancy, right, for Volo. But 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and untapping with Kiora would make 8. So what's our best option for 8? We could Hydroid Crisis for 6, which would draw us 3 cards, 4 and 5 off Kiora, right? Not a bad way there to jumpstart our hand, right? Or we could go Mirror Box. But I kind of like the idea of that Hydroid for 6. We get a copy with 6 because that's the way that copying a spell works. So when we cast it, we're going to draw 3, gain 3 life, and then we draw 2 more off of Kiora. So we've kind of refilled our hand. My hope here was that we would hit lands. We hit at least 1 this turn, so we're good with that. Kiora's Follower is another interesting way to untap a permanent, right? Using lands and things like that again. We'll just pitch something like Radagast, which is better at this point. I think the Biomancy, or the Doppelgang is better than the Biomancy because we can copy lands, right? We used all of our mana this turn, so we can't go ahead and attack, right? But I like where we're at this turn, putting the crises down. Now they're right there, threats in the air. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 mana, right? If we tap all of our creatures, so lots of potential. That'd be a 3 into Doppelgang. I thought there is land birds. We don't want to copy Hydroid Crisis because it would just die, right? It won't come in with the counters. I guess we could go land birds, land, right? Because you have the option to pick multiple. That would give us 6 lands and 3 more birds, right? We could do that. We could get a doubled in on the Railway Brawler, basically just drawing us 2 more cards, right? That could be interesting. So that plus that. Copy comes in first, drawing us a card. The real one comes in, and Railway Brawler would actually put the counters on it, right? Drawing us another card, playing that. We play land for turn, but that's a-okay either way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana because those guys just came in. Could do Anfin for some removal, right? Kiora's Follower just to get some more mana on board. Could go only 1 into the Duplicate, or 1 into the Doppelgang, so it doesn't make sense now. I mean, the Mutineer might make sense, right? Wouldn't trigger the Kiora, but the Mutineers would come in as 6/6s, right, and get rid of some creatures. Don't hate that idea, right? They each come in with 3 counters, and I think next turn, right, we could start moving towards getting into some combat. We could play the Mirror Box to buff all of our creatures, since buff all of our creatures for each non-token or Each non-token creature for each token creature we control. Again, I don't mind this. I think it's a decent board step. We'd love to see some more of the stompy things to push our damage through, but I don't think it's bad, so we'll stop that one there. Getting into playtest number 3, keeping a 1, 2, 3, 4-lander with Kodama's Reach, a Tender Shoot Dryad, and a Coma again. So not a bad hand. We'll get the Vantage down turn when we see an Amphimutineer, and now a Life Finds a Way. So again, I think same thing here. We're going to work towards getting Volo down next turn by doing the Kodama's Reach this turn. I'm thinking Forest to Battlefield. 1, 2, 3, 4 for green. 1, 2, 3, 4 for blue. So we'll put the blue in our hand. Right, and then now on turn 4, right, we get the Volo down. I think next turn we're looking to play something like Tender Shoot Dryad, right, so that we can start making multiple saplings a turn, right? 2 saplings a turn means that this turn on turn 6, unless somebody gets rid of Tender Shoot Dryad, we're untapping with 8 saplings. Again, 6 of those will be able to attack, right? The 2 that we made on our turn won't be able to attack. Here, I'd think 3 for Life Finds a Way. Get 3 for Champion and hold. Unfortunately, it won't get a copy because it shares a type with Volo, right? But that's a-okay. Attack with the Saplings. Now that the Lambholt's going to get counters over across of everyone's turn because of the Saplings. And then when it gets back to our turn, no one's going to be able to block any of our creatures. And we could push ourselves in towards, really taking advantage. My thought here is play the Dreamroot Cascade. So let's say we had 8 before, right? We're going to have 16 of them, right? Again, 14 of them being able to attack. This is now 8 counters, right? So pretty much nothing's going to be able to block. But I thought here with 8 mana here is you play Coma, right? The copy of Coma comes in. Life Finds a Way, it goes off. I'm going to make a copy of Tender Shoot Dryad. The real one's going to come in, right? That's 2 more counters for that. Sack this one. Life Finds a Way, goes off. Make another copy of Tender Shoot Dryad. So now all the saplings have +8/+8 instead of +3, 4/4, right? And now, right, going to get in for big damage. But let me know, what do you think of Volo down in the comment section below. It's an interesting deck. I think it's a deck that I've always liked the idea of. It's just never made my box as something I'm really interested in. But I always love coming back to it. I think it's a fun deck. I like the idea of it, and I like it when Wizards takes these interesting ideas and turns them into reality. But I'd love to know what you think of Volo, and we'll catch you guys next time.